Welcome to the What Happens Next YouTube channel. What we're aiming to do with this channel is share content designed to make sure that you're supported through whatever's next in your life. And we'd love to continue to do that. I've got a favour to ask today, and what I'd ask you to do is just subscribe. It costs you nothing, but it really helps us deliver really good quality content on a consistent basis. Thank you, and let's go on to the interview. Jeff, thank you so much for joining us on What Happens Next. I know that, like, at the start of our pre-conversation, you were talking about sort of football and how you sort of had a bit of a dodgy tackle and so. How often does that happen for you?
Well, fortunately, not very often, but usually most seasons. Yeah, touch wood. I'm usually doing the tackling and not being tackled. So on this occasion, it kind of counterbacked and ended up being crunched. But yeah, thanks for raising that. If I do look a bit pained, it's the middle of my back, which is bizarre for football. But anyway.
Yeah. What? So I suppose one of the things that we talk about, and we're talking about quite a lot, funny enough, with a lot of our other guests on What Happens Next, is balance, and particularly looking after our social and physical well-being. Does football play a part in that for you?
Oh, massive.
Yeah. In what way?
Yeah. Well, part of my role is mindset coaching. I use a lot of frameworks, two in particular. One's Positive Intelligence by Shahzad Shamin. But the main one I use for coaching is it's called Mind Flick Spotlight, used by the Olympics in UK sport and all those sorts of things. It's about how you react under pressure. And so for me, I absolutely do football for the physical sort of exercise. But I think from a mental perspective, regular exercise is proven. We're not designed to be sitting around. And so 100%, I think it's as important mentally as it is physically.
Yeah, 100%.
If you want to change your mindset, move about. It's that simple.
Yeah, and that, I mean, for me, certainly movement is fundamental. I always feel better when I sort of get some sort of physicality in my life and just move around, even though it's never pretty, because I do a combat class and it's never actually particularly graceful. I always feel better for it. I don't know about everybody else in the room, but I always feel better.
It doesn't really matter. But I do it with clients as well. Sometimes I find that their motivations drop, their battery levels, their energy levels, or something like that. And quite often you just start to dig into their morning routines or what they've been doing or how they've been doing it differently. And the same thing comes up time and time again. When they're consistent on those little atomic habits around, I've done my bit of mindset work, or I've done my bit of yoga, or I've done my trip to the gym, whatever their flavor of preference is, I don't mind. It's not for me to choose. But when there's something in there, it definitely enhances performance, definitely.
Yeah, get the day right? Get the morning right and start off well.
Holidays are another one. Everyone goes on holiday to relax and they come back out of routine, and sometimes, you've got to get it's hard.
Yeah, I mean, holidays are an interesting one. I'm just back from a sort of short trip to Romania, and I like the break, but I'm also ready to come back when I'm ready to come back, and it's getting that balance right between actually switching off and sort of making sure that I'm not spending too much time resting, because I don't think I'm at my best when I'm resting entirely, to be perfectly frank. So I want to talk about supporting the people who are going to be watching this with what happens next in their lives. A lot of the people who are thinking about what happens next, like you and I, run businesses, and they're thinking about what might be next for them personally, but also how it relates to their business. And I know that you've got loads of insight to bring in this particular area. So before we start, and I know all about you, but tell our viewers a little bit about you and why you can bring so much insight.
Okay, well, I'm Jeff Gosling. I'm the founder of a company called Procession Effect Limited, and we help ambitious entrepreneurs scale more valuable businesses faster, achieve freedom faster. And ideally and typically that involves working fewer hours and earning more money along the way as well. So, so that's what I do now. My background, interestingly, is I worked in many companies, and I was a bit of a builder. I treated every kind of job, even in my 20s onwards, as a bit of a project, a kind of self-development project. Oh, I'd like to do that, I'd like to do that, I'd like to do that, and see parts of a business. And I don't know why. That's just when it got interesting and easy, and I kind of left and did something else. So I was very much a builder type character. That's my flow. I love building things. I love helping other people build things, including the entrepreneurs I worked for previously. And that involved primarily building companies in the tech/services business, support services a lot. One was online due diligence from M&A deals, and one was litigation support using artificial intelligence to find evidence and things. So very much sort of tech and services wrapped together. That type of industry, building companies in that world. Got to a certain age. My next project was sort of, well, why don't I just want to do something on my own that I can do forever? That's great. And I've been gifted in all these roles, and maybe gifted, maybe looked for. You know, I'd implemented Traction, and I'd been to Aileron Centre in the States, and I'd done Sherlaw's coaching. I'd done all this stuff. So when I was looking around what to do next, I stumbled across this thing called business coaching, and got involved in that and built different frameworks. And initial one was one called Action Coach, which is a great system for smaller businesses. Certainly the first 2 steps are amazing. Then I became a value builder, which is another kind of framework you can add in. As I said, I've got the mindset. I could go on all day, but there's so many frameworks out there. I picked the best tools from each one, use them, apply them, leverage other people, leverage groups. My latest one is around finance raising. There's not enough finance around at the moment, so I've just become an associate partner of a company called Prime Advantage Capital Partners. So again, I'm going through all of that. So for me, it's a journey of personal development for me, and I just go on that journey. I'm always looking at the next thing. The cool thing is it keeps me ahead of my clients. So I still work with my first client, still work with my third client. So I'm just focused on me and growing and getting where I want to be. And I'm always staying ahead of my clients. And in order to stay ahead of your clients, you become more valuable yourself. So it's a win-win.
Yeah. I think the interesting thing there is there's no monopoly on good ideas, is there? And there's that element of picking the ones that work for you and your life. And it's so interesting because every time I sort of read a new book or I end up being just a bit of a magpie and going, I think that bit's going to work for me, but actually that bit probably I'm doing already or isn't as good. How do you evaluate the quality of ideas though? Because there's so many ideas and concepts out there. How do you decide on what are the right ones for you and what are the right ones?
I think it is what resonates ultimately with the client. I found different books resonate with different clients. Profiling stuff's quite important. Some people like detail and process. Some people are high level, and so there's a lot to do with personalizing it for the client. That's the advantage of having different ways and means of doing things. To your point about, I mean, I use the word leverage a lot. You know, leveraging is about, you know, more from less. And if you actually go into the root of most business building systems, I mean, they've all got different badges and names, and they've got their different acronyms for what a big goal looks like, or what this looks like, or what a type of meeting should be. But underpinning them all, they're all the same.
Yeah.
There is a fundamental theme, and, you know, people bicker over whether they should be called OKRs or KPIs or rocks, or it's just nonsense. It's all the same. So to me, I don't get into the weeds of arguing about whether I'm a this or I'm a that. The systems are the same. That the systems to build businesses consistently are the same. I don't, you know.
Yeah. Regardless of what you call the systems are very similar, aren't they? And it's interesting, isn't it, that sort of situation of looking at business through the terms of leverage? Because I'd imagine that when you first start, it's swapping time for what you're good at, right? So how does a business like that evolve to a more leveraged business, in your opinion?
Well, I'm a good example. Well, leverage is always looking for things that you do once and benefit from again and again and again. And so if you think of that, like if you look at cash as the fuel gauge of a business, quite often people look at the speedometer of a business as being how many new clients they've got or their revenue. And so the first thing to do is change that mindset, because there's no leverage in that. You can always run around and get another client. You can always service another client, especially if you're in a people business. A lot of my clients are selling services. So you're effectively selling time for money, which is no leverage. You run out of time. And as you get more clients, you have less time to work on leverage work, which is why most people can't grow professional services company. A, they don't know how, and B, they don't have the time because they prioritize technical service. And so, the speedometer is how many hours a week is being done in your business on leveraged work that you do once and benefit from again and again and again. That's developing yourself in line with goals, planning, goal setting, systemizing so that other people can do things, anything that you do once and benefit from again and again and again. It's highly leveraged work, like developing yourself, learning, reading books, etc. And then there's low leverage work, like putting in a simple system so that someone else can do something that you do.
That was really interesting. I read a couple of books, and the first book was ultimately designed as a business card because we were doing a lot of work with corporate clients, and I was getting a lot of calls from other advisors who wanted to know about the process we followed to do this work with corporate clients, and it worked really well as a business card because we used to go into these corporate clients, and at the time, this was coming back to 2015, we were doing a lot of work for putting in place corporate pensions for large fashion retailers. We used to go in with a book and say, look, that's the system if you want to follow it yourself. And I used to go, Chris, we don't want to read that. That's why you're here. Because to be honest, Jeff, nobody wants to read a book about automatic enrolment pensions if they can help it, to be honest. So they got me in to do that. But you know what's been interesting? I've only just realised this over the course of the last year. The second book I wrote, which was nothing to do with work, it was to do with kindness
project,
and the relationship that we've got with kindness in our life, is also been a leverage product for us, because even though it doesn't talk about what we do, it talks about what we believe.
It's your values, it's your why. It's
interesting. So interesting. When we looked back, we picked up 5 or 6 clients last year from events where I spoke at, nothing to do with work. But because we were speaking about our values and they aligned with those values, it worked really well. So, I agree with you in terms of leverage and writing books and doing that sort of work. Very intense, a lot of work, very easier not to do properly, but as a leverage product is quite powerful, right?
100%. I mean, look at the people that make Christmas records, and there's people still living off of things they did in the 1970s and whenever, 50s.
Yeah. You hear Slade every single year, and you think, not the oldest doing it right.
It's January, I bet that guy's going, woo!
So clients are thinking about what happens next in their lives. They're thinking about what their future business is over the next 5 to 10 years. What are the main factors they should be considering and actually taking action towards when thinking about what happens next?
Well, one of the things they can do if they want, they can reach out to me. They can take a thing called a PRE score through Value Builder, which is a personal readiness to exit score. Okay. So I'm going to give you some quite scary statistics, which is what drives me, because I think it's absolutely terrible. I'm sure you've got the same ones in your industry. How many people don't have pensions and don't do this and don't do that. The ones in our industry in business are pretty clear. 80% of businesses fail in 5 years, about 90% fail in 10 years. So there's only a small percentage of businesses that actually make it. There's only about 5% of businesses that get over £1 million of revenue and become what we call proper businesses, teams and everything else. Okay. Yeah. So you're looking at all these people working really, really hard, usually much harder than they need to because they're not using leverage. And the net result you think is, but some of them sell, and look at these people that have sold businesses. They've been successful. And here's the really frightening thing. 3/4 of people who sell regret it a year later.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it?
All that, the small percentage that actually do it, regret it a year later. So if you know those statistics, the question is, what the hell are we doing? Why are we even bothering? Right? But yet we all do. So, yeah, so based on that, people aren't doing a good enough job. When you're the sort of person who gets out of bed every morning and builds a business, and you said it with your little trip to Romania, and I'm the same, it's very rare those people, when they're all busy in their business, 3 months on the beach sounds lovely. A bit more golf sounds lovely. But fulfillment does not come.
100%.
It comes from
And that,
setting and achieving goals in line with your core values. And what people aren't doing is setting the next goal, considering the identity shift of not being in charge anymore, considering, there might be an earn-outs with people that don't want to work for, they end up with a job. The list is endless of people most people who fail to succeed in the next bit. So, this isn't about being a mountaineer and always the next mountain. It's about being a surfer, going, well, where am I? What am I doing? But what's the direction of travel? It doesn't end when you sell a company. And so that preparation around how involved you are, your social life might revolve around the people you work with. What do you want to do with your employees? Do you want to watch your business dissipate after all those years because the people who have bought it aren't very good? There's so many things that upset people when they sell companies.
And that's why we're investing so much time, effort, and energy into what happens next. Because I've seen it time and time again. People get to this panacea of retirement and realise that it's not all it's cracked up to be. And actually, the concept of what happens next is retirement isn't the only solution. It's defining your purpose and values and then working out what's going to motivate you to get out of bed in the morning. And that might be do more charity work but do something you believe in and think about that with plenty of time to spare so you can sort of build your business in that way. But yeah, that statistic about 3/4 of people regretting selling their business. Somebody, we interviewed somebody last week about fitness and what happens next, and they had a really interesting phrase that I really liked. What's the goal after the goal? So thinking about the next goal before you've achieved the first one is probably like, well, hold on, if I do that and that happens, I sell the business, I do whatever, what's after? What's the goal after the goal? And I think that's really important to think about, consider, and do. I lost you for a minute there, Jeff, but I was talking about goals after goal. Now, interestingly, one of the things that I've been learning about in preparation for this interview is that word procession, and a really interesting TED Talk on your website, which I'd recommend everybody has a look at, talks about procession. But in your own words, what does procession mean, and why is it so important to consider when thinking about our business lives, our personal lives, and everything else?
Yeah, I've learned about it in early stages, obviously, of my business, because I named my business after it, the processional effect. And the people often look at me and think, what's that all about? But in summary, which the thing I loved about it is we tend to go through life thinking the world revolves around us. It's an innate human thing, right? You look at yourself first in a photo, and you've got your goals and your plans and, where you want to be, and are we going to close this client? Can I get from A to B? What's my goal for the year? And processional effect in a nutshell is really about the effect at 90 degrees is far greater. What does that mean? Well, if you think about a pebble dropping in a pond, the pebble goes straight down, the ripples can go on and on and on. And the often cited one in nature is the bumblebee. It's buzzing around a honeybee, buzzes around collecting pollen, thinking its job in life is to make honey. The reality is, obviously, he probably doesn't call it honey because that's us eating it, but whatever he thinks it's for. And the reality is that the processional effect at 90 degrees is basically pollinating all the plants and trees, creating life on Earth. So he doesn't even know what he's doing, right? And so that's the bit I know. And so what does that mean in business terms? Well, it means instead of me saying, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that, I've always got the mindset that it's like my success comes from helping clients. right? If the clients succeed, then the rest of it will take care of itself. If you're helping people when they come to you rather than selling them, then as you said earlier, it's about that 90-degree thing. Just focus on the 90-degree. The 90-degree for me is just helping business owners succeed.
Yeah.
It's not, did Jeff get there, or did he do this, or did he do that?
Yeah. Adding value is the key factor. And then
and that's also that thing about increasing value. It's like, well, if I focus on, that's why I met you at Bit 100, why I might Bit 100. It's because some of these things aren't in your line of vision. You don't know them. When you hang out in a group of amazing people, stuff comes, like the old law of attraction, and it's there. It's like the peripheral vision that most business owners lose because they're so in the weeds and so, and that's what that's about for me.
And actually, do you think there's a perspective about losing focus of those? The interesting thing we have conversations with our clients quite a lot about is they've come to a realization, often after years of working in their business or working in a career, that they've missed a lot because their sole focus has been that. How does the concept of procession apply to our lives more holistically, do you think?
Well, for me, it really is about, focusing on bigger things. I mean, it's a really good book. 10x is easier than 2x, by Dan Sullivan and one of his disciples, Dr. somebody. And there's loads of stuff around the Pareto principle. You've heard me talk about the Pareto principle, leverage, what's the most important stuff. It's when you start to think, actually, the most important stuff, is if I've just got that clarity of that's what it's about. And when you are operating to a purpose, when you're operating to values, decision making becomes easier. It's just
easier to align to values and purpose.
Just like, and people know, we know when we're doing stuff. I won't go into weeds of something I did last year. I did some learning and development about buying companies, structuring buying companies, and how to put deals together to buy companies. It's an investment for learning, 3 days in US time on top of coaching and thousands of pounds I invest in myself and my development. At the end of it, I thought, I've learned all this stuff and you can do all this thing, but it didn't suit my values in terms of what most of them were trying to do, which was go and buy companies off of distressed owners and just business owners. I'm like, but everything in my being is about helping those people. Why would I want to benefit?
It doesn't align, does it? Yeah.
So I only focused on 2 types of the models, which is working to sell, which is when you start to work in to sell companies so that I become a part of the business and the shareholder and I benefit on the exit, or working to buy out, which is when you do it, they don't sell and they buy you back out. So I don't mind benefiting from getting involved in businesses and helping business owners, but it should be based on the success I bring to that company rather than me giving them 10 quid, taking the company off them, and 3 weeks later selling it for 500 grand.
But and as you say, that alignment of values, if it's not there, and values is a deeply personal thing for all of us, isn't it? But if it's not there, it's one of those things where are you going to look back and go, I'm really glad I did that? The answer is probably not.
And that's where procession effect comes in. You're not just, I want to get to here financially and I want to do that and I could do this. It's just broader than that. It's like, well, I'm sure if I help these people and I do this well and the ripples spread, you'll get, even statistically, you get more, as Buckminster Fuller proved, you get more back in the end anyway. There's no downside.
Now you've mentioned about the work you do in business acquisition and helping sort of business owners sort of buy and sell, potentially buy and sell businesses and think about acquisition as part of their plan. From somebody who understands that world quite well, and we've talked about the statistics on the amount of businesses that actually never sell. It's the lion's share, isn't it? Yeah. What should business owners be thinking about if part of their plan is, well, actually, I think I might want to sell, to make that business a saleable asset for them?
Yeah, Well, number one, even if you've got loads of business experience and you've been doing it for decades, most business owners haven't bought and sold companies. Okay. So just accept, like I have with finance raising, that it's different. So I've got into bed, metaphorically speaking, with people who share my values. And initially it was looking at partnership, and then they said, come join. Just those connections. So number one on the list, most buyers are far more sophisticated than sellers. And it is a negotiation and a competition. So you should make most of your money from your business at the end. People are too focused on the here and now. And too many people aren't making most of the money at the end. That's because they might be right at running their business, but they don't know how to sell one. Okay, number one. And the buyers are far more sophisticated. So you're already at disadvantage. So address that knowledge gap, surround yourself with experts, get help. Right, number one. Number two, just to add to the mix and the risk, the business broking industry is fundamentally not acting in the best interests of most business owners. Sorry, I know some really good, nice ones if you want to know good brokers, but they are the vast minority. So when you get all these phone calls from saying people, oh, hello, I'm interested in buying your business, or I've got the business could be bought, and I won't name companies, I'm not here to dismiss, but be wary. A lot of these people are making their money from marketing companies, not actually selling. They also value it based on whatever they need to tell the owner to get it on the list, which completely inflates what you think your business is worth, and then it all ends in disappointment.
Yeah.
So just give yourself a chance. The world of selling businesses is not geared up naturally. It exploits the fact that most business owners don't know how to sell companies.
Yeah.
So for goodness sake, don't do all that building businesses. I mean, I've seen situations where, brokers are getting like higher percentages and senior managers and directors in companies who've spent 20 years building a company, and all they're doing is punting it around. So, give yourself a chance would be my first piece of guidance on looking at selling a business. And then you get into the world of, well, how do you prepare a business for sale? How do you look good? And what's the way, what sort of things impact that?
That business broking world is always really interesting, isn't it? Because it's, and we get 5 emails a week that we typically ignore about would we like to sell, and our journey at Savello is we're going to be around for a long time, and just still have got sort of massive plans to continue to add value, not potentially scale in terms of staff, but add a lot more value, which is why we're sort of working on the What Happens Next project. But a friend of mine who's a slightly bit older than me, Brian, sold his business 4 years ago now, and his experience of that space in the financial planning world encouraged him to actually look at that and go, what do how do business brokers actually earn their money, and is there value in having a service where the selling business pays for a service that's a bit more impartial and a bit more independent, and they're doing really good work in that space, whereas a lot of the market is big acquirer comes in, makes you an offer, does loads of due diligence, brings the price down, and suddenly your expectation of what you're going to get for the business is significantly less because it's been based on that original offer, not the bit after the due diligence.
There's really two primary drivers. But there's two things that people. Number one, and I get this a lot. I build companies with clients, and they go, "Oh God, I've had someone interested in buying me. I've got it literally at the moment, and it happens quite regularly. That's a sign that we're doing a good job, right?" But ultimately, this excitement of the first offer, or selling because actually right at the moment you're feeling a bit down about your business. I mean, it's got to be done in a planned way, right? It's got to be done on your terms, And what you're looking to do is to build competition. There is nothing going to drive a better value price for you than more people wanting your company.
Yeah. Competition is talking about leverage. It gives you leverage, doesn't it? And that's an important factor.
But you can build a business and you can build relationships with people that might want to buy your business, including your employees, right? So, you know what I mean? It's like if you're selling your services, you go around, build relationships, find your clients, find the right avatar, and you go sell your business. The same applies to your business. You know, you don't just take the first customer that pops up.
Yeah, 100%. No, completely agree with that. Now, let's talk about sort of a little bit more specifically about building better businesses, because I know on the website you talk about 6 steps to building a better business. Certainly those tips on getting getting the best value by making sure that you've got competition and you're looking at the market and you're understanding what people are looking at when they're buying businesses is really important. But let's dig in the weeds and look at what people should consider when they're thinking about building their business better. What are those 6 elements, and what can you share that might help people think about what happens next?
I always do the action coach 6 steps. I mean, the bottom 2 are like literally where the most people need to do most work initially. But I would also stress, again, I mentioned all these things they're sort of synergistic. Okay?
Yeah.
So if you understand and can build a really great business for value, you are built the same. The outcomes of what the 6 steps give, or the value builder things, or the traction, or ultimately they're all synergistic. Building a great business is more valuable, right? And so the 2 are totally intrinsically linked. Although there is a tension. I will just mention there is a tension as you grow a business. Do I want profit or do I want value? So some of the things I'm going to talk about, for example, step 1 of the 6 steps is predominantly about building value, not profit. Okay?
Right.
That's around 4 steps of mastery, the foundations of a business, such that it's ready to scale safely and without killing the owner, right? And so that's about removing the chaos of a business and creating a control. The 4 elements of mastery are the destination mastery, the vision of the business, the purpose of the business, its values, what it's about, its plans, okay, the direction of travel, the bus you want all these employees and customers to get on with you. The second one is, I mentioned earlier, is around the leverage of time, which is the mastery of focus and time, okay? Where is all the time and the focus going, and the systems that you put those in, okay? Which I did a whole webinar on last week, actually. It's a big topic that usually starts with people. Third one is the base level of delivery mastery, okay? Are we keeping our clients happy and delivering a good product that everybody likes? No point scaling a business that can't deliver, number 1. Number 2, is it scalable? Have we got the systems in place, recruitment and etc., such that if you were to double or treble your business, it can stay. It's not just going to fall over because you haven't got enough people or enough systems. Okay, so the base level. Remember, this is just foundations. It doesn't need to be perfect systems. It's just got to be consistent. We can do this stuff. We can scale. And the final part of mastery is financial mastery. The language of business is numbers, and people don't have them, so don't scale without them. And so that's looking at the numbers that you need in your business, both forwards, the usual accountancy backwards ones, but also the forward-looking ones, the indicators of what might be happening in a few months' time or next year. And so getting all that in place. They're the foundations of a business that are often missing. So that's step 1, mastery. When you put all that stuff in place, you will make more profit because you're doing some good stuff, right? But it's not primarily driven for profit. That's primarily building the foundations of a business that becomes more valuable, okay? The next step is marketing, okay, and sales. That's where you start to drive profit because you're now in a position where you can scale without letting clients down. You can hire people. You've got the numbers. You can see which clients are more profitable. You've got a direction of travel. You know the right types of clients. So that's about differentiating yourself and your messaging and your guarantees and productizing your services, your marketing strategy, okay? But then behind that, there's 5 levers, the 5 ways. And that's looking, again, at your profit. Don't sell unprofitable products. Number 1, and pricing, which is obviously linked to that. And then you look at 2 levers for repeat business, which is how often do people buy and how much do they spend. And then you look at 2 levers for new business, which is where all my leads coming from on my marketing and how good am I at converting in my sales process. Okay. So that's the second step. And then I won't go into the weeds, we haven't got all day, but effectively then when you start to got a business that's got the foundations in place, it can scale, it's got tested marketing, then you start to get into the world of systemization. How can we do it faster, quicker, cheaper, faster, quicker, cheaper? How can we improve our performance and be more leveraged? So the third step is all about building leverage into your business, okay, systems. And then the fourth step is about building out leadership teams. And then the fifth step is about synergistically growing that, whether you want different offices and plant, and creating results, and really scaling it. And then the last step is around freedom and what you do with your time and your money.
Yeah, love that. Absolutely love that. And you mentioned about the systems all having similar concepts and using similar sort of techniques. But I know one of the things that you talk about quite clearly on the website is value builder. And I'd imagine that a lot of our clients are looking at their businesses and going, if I've got 10 years to go, how do I make sure that I build value? What is value in a business to you? How do you define that when you're sitting with a business owner? And how does a business owner start, number one, identifying the value of their business, but also building value?
Yeah. So as per name, value builders, one of the badges I've been trained by Brad Sugars, who invented action coding. Brad, trained by John Morello, who invented value builder. So I get to hang out with some amazing people. So thank you to all of them, right? As leverage, right? So yeah, they did a load of work around the statistical reasons and the impacts of different things on the value of a business. Okay. So the value of a business is what somebody wishes to pay. Okay. And there's ways and means of selling that well and preparing to sell and all the stuff that people do. But if you think about it more inherently around the value of a business, it may not tell you the exact number. It might say it's $1 million, right? Doesn't really matter what the number is. That's what someone wants to pay. What this does is enables you to do a questionnaire, which then gives you guidance. I can take people through that, of the 8 main drivers statistically that if you work on them, will statistically significantly improve the likelihood of a high multiple of profit when you sell. So, i.e., your business will be more valuable, but also significantly increase the probability of offers, which is where you get competitive. Okay. So if you work on these 8 factors, these 8 drivers, it drives up statistically those 2 factors. Ultimately, knowing that what someone wants to pay is what, but you can't work on the basis of, oh, well, it might be worth this, it might be worth that. You want to work on the basis of what 8 things can I work on, because they're tangible. What can I work on? And so it's those 8 drivers.
It's one of those. It's one of those. The Switzerland principle. It is, isn't it?
Yeah. So they primarily focus around. There's obviously financial performance. Everyone talks about, are you doing well financially? So if you go back to what we've just been talking about, you've got good audited accounts of, good growth, good track record, all etc. Okay. How profitable are you? So all the stuff we've talked about in building a good business is driven around a nice, repeatable, profitable business. Okay. Yeah. And also what the potential is to grow, which again could be for them how they plug you into their business or whatever else. Okay. So growth potential, financial potential. We mentioned about cash is king. Well, we didn't mention cash king, but we mentioned about financial mastery, which is where cash is king comes in. If a business is sucking cash instead of churning cash, then obviously that's one of the drivers. So I do a thing called Cash Flow Story, which is all about helping people
where that's moving towards.
Yeah, there are 3 levers. I've talked about 5 levers in marketing. There are 3 levers in working capital. So you work on those and you develop that. So basically, you pull levers in your business and you make sure that your finances, your cash, and all that good. So there's a few of them. The one you mentioned is a Switzerland structure, and there's another one called Hub and Spoke. What they're about is effectively the risk, the independence of the business. Are you too reliant on any one employee, any one client, any one supplier? And the Hub and Spoke is the most common one I start with. If the business is too reliant on you, it isn't saleable. End of.
Yeah.
All right. Unless you want a job afterwards. Right. Not many business owners. I don't meet many business owners who've enjoyed an earn out. That's a straw poll of plenty I speak to, but not everyone.
And I've met business owners who've done earn outs and have said, I've gone from effectively being unemployable and being master of my own destiny to spending a 3-year period doing exactly the opposite. And and again, there may be people out there who have had different experiences of this. My experience talking to people like that has been that it's never been a particularly enjoyable part of their lives.
Well, I'll give you another top tip around these a couple of other drivers, just while we're on it. I mean, you're absolutely right, by the way. Obviously, other signs of growth potential in a business are how happy the clients are. But people often, I always do both. It's not in the value builder, but I always look at employees as well. So how happy are the stakeholders, the customers and the employees, right? It's a sign of potential growth, right? And it's a sign of a good business, going back to what we were talking about before, number one. And another one is around the type of revenue. So when you're looking at your marketing strategy, okay, you know, a lot of people with businesses, it's like, I go out, get a client, I service them. I go out, get a client, I service them. I go out, get a client, I service them. And I call those businesses promotions. They're just big sales and marketing engines. You know, what people are looking for is a de-risked business with certainty of future revenue. They're looking at how quick they're going to get their investment back. So again, looking at those two levers around repeat revenue, how can you tie people down to predictable subscription or some sort of revenue that comes in again?
Recurring income, right? Is
roughly when you're talking about some, and I do get clients say to me, but Jeff, you know, when we do these big projects, we make a load of profit, and when we do all this kind of boring stuff, we only make 20%. Yeah, but all that boring stuff that you've got contracted for 3 years, it happens even when the economy drops. That's 3 times more valuable to an investor than transactional revenue that you don't know if it's coming or not.
So we talked quite a lot about what people should do, what people should think about, what people should think about when they're thinking about planning within their business. However, one thing that I always am conscious of as I go through my business growth journey and we carry on building Savello and now what happens next is making mistakes. Now, I've got a bit of a different perspective on mistakes. I think actually small mistakes can help us learn and grow and develop. But what are the 3? But I agree with you, by the way. I think the biggest leverage I've got is from just stealing other people's ideas and learning about the mistakes that others make. So for the benefit of people watching this video, what are the 3 things, the 3 biggest mistakes you see business owners make, or in your experience, business owners make in the market when thinking about sort of what happens next and selling their business?
You've mentioned the first one, by a mile. I mean, I invest time learning. I've got my own coach. As you know, I hang out with lots of people cleverer than me in various places. And number one, learn, right?
Yeah.
Learn before you earn. You know, Jim. And then you've got Jim Rohn. You know, work harder on yourself than you do on your job. If you work hard on yourself, you can achieve anything. If you work on your job, you'll just achieve a living. Right? But there's nothing new about that. But if you're not growth minded and you're not open to getting help and advice, yes, you learn by mistakes, but it's a very expensive process, and it's why most businesses fail. Okay,
and
there's no need to fail. There is no need to work 80 hours a week. There is no need to burn out. There is no need to scrabble around trying to, you know, if you're limited here, then it ain't going to happen. And that's selling a business, building a business. Just do it the easy way. Get help. It's not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of strength to ask for help.
Yeah, agreed.
Right. And so, and the challenge is that generationally, and you and I are not spring chickens, generationally, there was almost a kind of, well, you know, what is all this stuff about coaching or this or that or whatever else? It's like, I built a business for 20 years. I don't need any help. And our generation don't do it. And they're the ones, just so we're all clear, I'm not a baby boomer, I'm a Gen X, but even the baby boomers, just to scare the crap out of you, right? There is an entire sea of baby boomers out there that built businesses because there was too many people in that generation and not enough jobs, right?
Yeah.
So there's an entire sea of baby boomers with companies that are all trying to sell. And they're trying to sell companies that do stuff that you and I have heard of.
Yeah.
The entire generation coming through have no interest in those companies, and there's less of them.
Yeah.
So you need to be in the top 5% if you want to sell your company any kind of value. And you don't get in the top 5% just by doing it on your own, whether it be in business, in sports, in life, in anything.
life's a team game, right?
Yeah, winning is a team
yeah,
game. Get a
yeah,
good team. 100%. Thank you. That's number one. I mean, I could go on to twos and threes. Number two, pretty much what I mentioned earlier. They've not got clarity of a plan. They're reacting.
Yeah.
First rule of Stephen Covey: be proactive. Begin with the end in mind. Number two.
Yeah.
3, put first things first. I mean, the guy's written the book. Read it, right? Seriously, if you don't have a plan in place, which is like, that's what I really want. The business is there to give you more life. What do I really want? Not, oh, someone wants to buy it, I don't like it anymore. Get to a position where you do like it. That's when you want to sell.
100%.
Or not sell, your choice. Freedom.
And I think the interesting thing for me is that's the conversation as a financial planner I love having with clients. What does your ideal life look like? And how do we build the money around supporting you to do that? Because actually, all money is a tool that allows you to live the life you want. And what we want to do is understand the component parts to that, so we can help you do that. And actually, I agree with you. I think for a lot of our clients, certainly for me and possibly for you, what happens next isn't retirement, but having the money and having a clear plan to get there allows you freedom of choice, and that's where the important factor is.
I think the third one, just you asked for 3, I think, is undercapitalization and bootstrapping. This kind of, when I get this, then I'll do that. Don't borrow money for bad reasons. If you've got problems with working capital, reach out and we'll sort them out, right? But if you're looking to scale and exit a business and you want to make millions of pounds, like most things in life, you probably have to get some money into it. And a lot of people try and do it undercapitalized, or taking too much money out, or not going and getting finance or whatever. And the irony is that a lot of these really well-run businesses with good track record are the ones that can get finance, whereas all these up-and-coming, I've got a new widget, I want to do this, can't. So, using, understanding corporate finance and understanding the use of cash is fuel, time is fuel. They're the only 2 fuels you've got, right? You've only got so much time and you ain't going to get it back. So if you want to do it faster, you've got to hire good people. And in order to do that, you need money. In order to do this, that, and the other that you might want to do to get your business into shape and experts in and all the rest of it, you might need money. So don't undercapitalize, don't bootstrap at the end of your winning business.
Yeah, and that paradox is always there, isn't it? The paradox is that time is the finite resource, right? Time's the bit that's going to run out for all of us. So actually looking at that in that way and saying, can I use money to help me get there faster and do what I want is always.
You have an investor mentality. What do I need to invest to get a better outcome? And that could be help. It could be a different way of doing your leadership team. It could be any of the things that we work on.
Yeah, perfect. Jeff, thank you for today. I've really enjoyed it. And as always, I've learned loads, a couple of bits that I'm going to apply to my own business, but I'm hoping that you've benefited from watching it too, particularly if you're on that journey where you're thinking about what happens next. One extra question, where do you think people should start? So if you're me, so I'm 46, so as you say, no spring chicken, but a little bit of a run to go. Where should you, and I've got my own thoughts about this, but at what point should you think about what might be next and therefore define your plan? Is there a too early? Is there a too late? Where do you sit on that?
I'd just do it now. If you've got clarity of where you want to be in the future, that's how I start with all clients. Clarifying what they want and then helping them build a business that gives it to them. And ultimately, first thing I do is clarity. Begin with the end in mind. Yes, it can change every year and you'll grow and learn and it changes. Do it every year. But ultimately, that goal setting / vision of what you want life to look like is the picture, the vision board, all the stuff you hear about. Do it now. Build a business that gives you that.
It's so interesting. I had a client where we built their plan. We built their plan originally about 8 or 9 years ago. And they went through some life circumstances that meant that they got divorced. And the client said to me, so interesting when we're thinking about planning, I don't believe in planning anymore because, Chris, plans go wrong. And my suggestion to him is plans always go wrong. plans aren't built to be sustainable in any way, shape, or form. And the quote that I always use, and it's quite a direct one, but it's one I like, is that Mike Tyson quote. Everything goes to plan until you get punched in the face. But that doesn't stop people like sort of planning, because you're going to take the action to just get you a little bit closer.
Well,
and then
you've hit the nail on the head. You've hit the nail on the head. I always use the line, the value in is the planning, not the plan.
Yeah, 100%.
Right? It's the sitting down and thinking and getting clarity for your reticular activating system, the compass in your brain.
Yeah, 100%.
That's the value. Get that image. That's what I want life to look like.
Because then you'll take actions to get yourself a little bit closer.
So
that if it does change, you can.
You've got to have a direction of travel. You've got to have that fire inside you to get somewhere, other than just out of the trouble that you're in.
Yeah, perfect.
And that's all it's about. And you can update it and change it, and things change and life changes, and we never know if we've got 3 minutes or 30 years, do we? I mean,
and we're never too early or late to plan, right? Just as you say, do it.
It's we call it a planning ladder. We do the bigger picture stuff. Where do you want to be? Then a 5-year, more succinct outcomes. Then 1 year, 12 months, just a few of them. Then quarterly, and then weekly down to daily. That's the quarterly, the bridge between the future and the today. And all the business systems talk about quarterly planning, and nobody, well, my clients do, but virtually nobody, unless they're on some kind of a program, does it properly.
Well, we've got our team meeting on Friday where we're doing our quarterly planning, so I'll let you know how that goes. Jeff, thank you so much for joining us today. As always, I've really enjoyed it. Where can people find out a bit more about you?
I'm generally around on LinkedIn, and I'm Jeff R. Gosling, so JEFFR Gosling.
What's the R stand for?
Roy, that's my dad's name. So Jeff R. Gosling Jeff Gosling at Jeff at jeffrgosling.com, sorry. Or if you're on LinkedIn, it's Jeff R. Gosling. You'll find me.
Perfect. All right, and we'll share links when we share all the interviews and go from there. Have a lovely day. Hopefully you found that useful, and we'll speak to you on what happens next soon.
Lovely. My pleasure. Thanks for asking me on.
You're welcome.